John, welcome back to another episode. Uh, it's a redundant thing to say because it's always the case, but there is so much going on right now. I failed to raise this with you before we began, and I know you have a lot to share with us, but there was a pretty
hmm
amazing revelation here in the New York Times and elsewhere that the Pentagon has basically admitted that they have and have been studying UFOs. This is what Bob Lazar has been talking about for decades, and it's now been confirmed to the extent that people believe what's in the New York Times. The U.S. Navy has officially published previously released videos showing unexplained objects, which a Pentagon official says they have aircraft, spacecraft, whatever, from other worlds. How are you, John?
Yeah, I'm well. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. I said, the significance of this announcement is basically the U.S. government saying we have been lying to your face for 75 years and ridiculing you when you question us or doubt us, right? So this whole gaslighting concept. And before I got into this whole world, I never even heard of these terms like gaslighting and
Right.
astroturfing and all that stuff. We should do a show one week just on the terminology.
Yeah.
I never even heard of this stuff before I got into your world of conspiracy stuff. I didn't know what gaslighting was. And
Yeah.
the first time I heard Shepard Ambellis use the term sheep dipped, I just about fell out of my chair. I was like, "What the hell is that?" I was like, "I don't know
You
what the
get
hell
some
he's talking about."
chips in the sheep dip.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, for people who
So
don't
speaking,
know, that's a good
yeah.
term that a lot of people don't know. Sheep dipping is the process of taking an operative, a military or an intelligence operative who is essentially a wolf, and dipping them in sheep's clothing. It can be a years long process of establishing a background story. Like, for instance, if you wanted to make it appear that some former CIA operative who can barely use Skype and PowerPoint had somehow discovered an exploit in a State Department database and tried to blow the whistle and the CIA kicked him out. That could be true, or it could be a fake story cultivated over 10 years that is buttressed by fake lawsuits to make it seem real, but it could be sheep dipping.
Mm. Well, and then you've got this whole thing of gaslighting and this gaslighting notion, right? And again, so the government's just been lying to people and saying, no, they don't exist and you're all crazy. And anybody who says they exist, you're all kooks and you're conspiracy theorists. And now they're like, yeah, well, not really. We actually have a couple of these things somewhere,
Got him in the
right?
garage.
Right. So I don't think people understand that the articles that came out today are that they actually have aircraft from other places not built on this planet. And
Right.
they've admitted that today. So
Yeah.
again, we talked about why did the president rush into the formation of Space Force? And is it really because Vladimir Putin is developing satellite killing weapons?
They did announce
Right.
that as well.
Yes, I understand. So there's two different stories, right? One is you got guys flying around in these other aircraft that go zoom, and the other is you got Vladimir Putin and the Chinese blowing up satellites.
Right.
You're probably going to need a space force. Just it just looks like you're going to need one, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's
Well, the other
interesting
thing
news.
I want to let everybody know is that if they're watching us right now on one of the, Crowdsource the Truth social media sites, I do like to let people know that we simulcast these YouTube videos on the John E. Hoover YouTube channel. That's John's channel. Oh, and you've hit 30K. Congratulations, John. That's great. Nice
Thank you.
milestone there. People who aren't yet subscribed should go on to YouTube and search for John E. Hoover. You can follow John's videos that cover a lot of really interesting topics. He's been very focused on coronavirus and specifically digging into the data that the mainstream news presents us as the, I'm making air quotes here, facts that people like Dr. Fauci are advising President Trump and Andrew Cuomo with. And John has done some amazing research pointing out how these quote unquote facts just simply don't make sense. We're going to be doing some more of that in just a little bit, less than 30 minutes, when we begin our sponsor exclusive show on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and Subscribestar and Patreon/Crowdsource the Truth. People are really liking this thumbnail of you, John, pictured as a sort of a version of the Joker here. Now, what is it that you're saying, good news, why so serious?
Well, I think part of it is I feel like I'm the villain because I'm the one breaking the good news, right? So a week ago, we said, hey, wait a second, stop the presses. We've got great news to report here. Coronavirus is trending downward in America. And yet, nobody picks up the story. No one picks up the story. The coronavirus is trending down as far as deaths. Everybody's talking about cases. Everybody's talking about, and they'll spin these statistics any which way other than what you're going to see tonight, which is the truth, right? Yeah. So tonight, what you're going to see is the next level of detail, which is not just that how is coronavirus, how are we doing in the United States? We're going to look at Washington State, the Wuhan of America. Remember when it started? It started in Washington State. Remember we had like 40 people, 40 cases, 40 dead in Washington. And there was the whole outbreak.
I heard about it all over New York. They were saying it was,
it started in Washington. Now, before New York, it started in Washington State.
Huh.
And
maybe some of it leaked out of Bill Gates's lunchbox.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to look at the various states. We're going to look at Texas. We're going to look at Florida. We're going to look at California. We're going to look at Pennsylvania. We're going to look at Connecticut and Massachusetts. And we're going to look for a trend. In other words, how many states would you need to look at in order to spot a trend? 2?
No. More.
Well, no, right? You got to look at more than 2, right? If 2 states had similar properties, is that a trend? Not
Could
yet.
Be a coincidence. I think 3 at a minimum, more like 5, 10, 15.
Okay. All right. So we're not going to look at 15, but we're going to look at enough
5
states tonight to get a sense for, is there a trend? And how are we doing in the United States with coronavirus? And does the data that we're getting from the CDC, so I sent you some links from the CDC and stuff like that. The data that we're getting straight from the CDC. So we get it from Johns Hopkins, we get it from the CDC, and then there's Worldometer. And a couple guys were commenting after last week's show that, hey, wait a second, the last 2 days were terrible. That was true. We had 2 bad days, and in fact, this past week was terrible. However, that doesn't negate the fact that we had 3 months running of really good numbers. So before we go to the patron-only show, I do want to show the audience just a couple quick slides from that PDF deck. But again, we're getting the data straight from the CDC. So these are not my numbers. I'm not defining anything. I'm just charting it.
Downloading.
That's really all. Downloading it and charting it. Downloading it and charting it. And it takes time. It's effort. We talked about doing the work, right? So the question is, why is the media losing their minds reporting on this thing? Why won't anyone report this good news since we broke this story, a week ago? So why don't we go 1 or 2 slides, 3 slides into this, and we'll take a look before we go to our patron-only show.
Sure.
All right. So this is...
Nice chart.
Thank you. So this is coronavirus deaths in America over time, week by week by week. How does it appear we're doing?
It's going down.
Yes. Why won't this make the news?
I don't know. It's strange. Well, because they want everybody to have to get a vaccine. They wouldn't let me in the bank today, John. My bank, you now have to, on the app, make an appointment, and they text you when you can come in and deposit a check.
They love it. They love it because they hate having people in banks. It's just so inefficient. anything they can do to keep you out of that branch. But this is not news. How is this not the top story tonight? The coronavirus deaths over the course of the last 3 months have been steadily declining. Now, yes, we've had a tough week. And when we go to Worldometers, the data there doesn't match the CDC data. The CDC data trails Worldometer by about a week. Okay. But we've got 3 months of data. So when we look at 3 months, just scroll down on either one of these and you'll see what I'm talking about. Just scroll down on either page. When you go to the CDC site, what you're getting is the mortality data, and it runs about a week behind. There you go. That's it. That's the hot data. And it's the first column on the left is the only column that matters. Everything else is a distraction. All the other columns are irrelevant. So the first column shows 132,000 dead, while the Johns Hopkins map right now shows about 145,000 dead. So there's some discrepancies in the various different numbers based on where you look. So if you go to Worldometer, you go to the CDC, or you go to Johns Hopkins, you're going to get slightly different numbers, but they're all considered authoritative sources. Okay, so any of them are within the realm. So if you take your reports from any of these, in fact, you can scroll down on Worldometer and it'll show weekly deaths. And just keep scrolling down. You'll get to weekly deaths. Now, here it shows new deaths. And you can, if you look at the table with the red stuff, this is important. We can sort by how many new deaths there are today and how many new deaths there are yesterday and how many deaths there are total in each state, right? And that's the type of analysis that I do every day, all day. This is what I do, is sit here and look for trends and try and figure out what's happening, which states are on fire, which states are doing pretty well, right? So this is all from Worldometer. And you can keep scrolling down.
For Colorado?
They haven't reported or, missed their reporting. A lot of these guys just don't do the homework. The health departments, or nothing's happening. Right? Now, a couple other important points. Taiwan, the island of Taiwan with a population of 24 million people, has celebrated 100 days without a single new case.
Oh, that's good.
That's really good. Their masks must be amazing. These guys must have that social distancing down to a science, right? So I'm seeing today they're saying that you have to stay 20-something feet away now.
What? Who said that?
I don't know. But Taiwan, 100 days, no cases. No new cases.
You saw Dr.
100
Fauci's
days.
very effective mask, right? His chin can spew virus up to 26 feet, so he's got that protected.
Yeah, I find it
And he
ironic.
didn't even come with a mask. That's a Washington Nationals mask, isn't it? What does that say on it?
I think probably. I find it ironic that his wife is in charge of bioethics at the CDC.
Yeah.
So that's ironic that she's sitting to his side there.
Unbelievable.
All right, so
just real quick, John, what did you think about his incompetent first pitch? It was about as good as his incompetent evaluation of the coronavirus.
Yeah, I didn't know you knew much about baseball. I thought.
Well, I know you're supposed to throw it over the plate, not where he threw it, which is super far away. There it is.
I don't know. I don't follow that.
Oh, he's like throwing it all the way over there.
Pathetic. That's pretty pathetic. That's a pretty big miss.
Right.
So the big question right now that I have, and time gives perspective. When we look at the 4 million cases in the United States versus the less than 100,000 in China, it makes me wonder, did China go through the same thing we're going through?
I don't know.
Is the virus that went through Wuhan and killed 4,500 people, is that the same thing that we're experiencing in the United States right now? Because that virus in China ended up killing 10 in Hong Kong and a handful in Shanghai and a handful in Beijing, and no one in the neighboring countries. No one in Vietnam, no one in Mongolia. And when we go to Japan, we've got less than 1,000. We go to Korea, we've got less than 500. Does their experience seem similar to what we're going through with 4 million cases and 145,000 people dead? Does that sound about right compared to Japan, compared to Korea? And right. To me, it doesn't sound like it's the same experience. It
Hey,
sounds
something's
like
changed here, John, about the map. They've got this new column.
yeah, they're always mucking with it. And the one I'm using is different from the one that you're using. But the net of it is they're showing 144,734 dead in the United States right now. And when we go all the way down to China, China has 86,000 cases. 86,000 cases.
Wow.
We have 4 million cases. 86,000 is a rounding error in our number.
What's up with that? There's been a lot of stuff going on where they demanded that the Chinese consulate, I think in Houston, be closed, and then China said, "Nah, F you, close your consulate." So it's like battling consulates there. John, we've got just a couple more minutes here before we transition over to the sponsor exclusive segment. We've got about 5 minutes, I'd say, but I'm going to give you the heads up there. We'll go in depth on all this stuff. Yeah.
Let's pop back to the PDF file and just show one or two more. Yeah, let's just show one or two more of these slides. So that's the trend. That's the trend in New York City. And New York City is a disaster. All right, so New York City is about as
due to
bad.
De Blasio.
Right. So New York City is about as bad as it gets, right? They break out New York City from New York State, and New York City, so this is just De Blasio, as bad as it gets. Look at the trend over time. What do you see? It's getting better. It's going down. It's getting better. Why is everybody losing their minds? All right, let's go to the next slide. Next. The source of the data is the CDC. Next slide. Here's the link that we use to get the data from the CDC. Okay?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked for that.
Right. Next slide. I keep posting it in the comments, but people don't search the comments. They keep asking. All right. So this is where we get the numbers for coronavirus. And the numbers for coronavirus, it's a different place than when we go to get the numbers for influenza. So if you just simply scroll down on that, it's different numbers. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Go ahead. And so these are the official numbers, right? And there's a little button that says click here to download. And what I do is click on that and I download those numbers and I bring it into the spreadsheet. So that's the link to get to those numbers. So we've got the flu view mortality system and then the coronavirus system, 2 different pages, 2 different CDC systems. Go to the next site real quick. And then we'll have to go to Patreon only in just a couple minutes. All right, so you guys have seen this page. We've been using this to get the nationwide numbers, but now we're using this page to get state numbers. So now we click on the state button next to the nationwide button up on the right, and that allows us to go into Texas and Florida and California and Washington and get the numbers for each one of those states and download them. So let's go to the next slide real quick. All right. So when we look at the CDC's numbers on the Johns Hopkins map, 145,000 people have died from coronavirus, right? So let's go to the next slide real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Right. So this shows a slightly different number. Can you zoom into that top row? The first line, first number on the left. Yeah, 132,000.
Yeah.
Right. All right, so the Johns Hopkins map is showing 145,000, and the CDC table shows 132. So this is what I mean by it's trailing by about a week or something like that. As far as these are official numbers coming out of the CDC, the Johns Hopkins numbers are a little bit more forward-looking. Same with the Worldometer, but the CDC stuff, this is like official death certificate stuff. Okay, so let's go to the next page. Okay, so the only column that matters here is the first column, and that's all deaths involving COVID, period. That's all we care about. So the 132,000, those are the official COVID deaths according to the CDC. That's what I'm using in my charts and tables for the nation. But when you download the spreadsheet, you also get state data. So let's pop to the next screen real quick. All right, so this is the USA, and this is our COVID deaths trending in the USA charted based on the data coming off of their page. Right, so this is what I mean. It's their data.
Huge
I'm
drop
just,
here.
well, that's this week, but that's going to get worse. So as this week fills up, that'll fill up and get worse because this week's not good. So, but again, the gist of this is over the course of 3 months, it's getting better and better and better for the most part. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide real quick, and then we got to go. All right. So this is influenza deaths. Now, this started in October 2019.
But look at that. In March, in April. And that's right when Burke said we're not going to talk about it anymore.
Exactly. And we know that New Jersey stopped reporting back in February, but I guess the coroners and the medical examiners continued to do their work, and it kind of went through a back channel because it kept getting recorded. So if you go to the next slide, what you'll see is I juxtapose the two on top of each other. All right, so now you get to see the influenza outbreak and the coronavirus outbreak together at the same time. And then, right, so the blue stuff is the coronavirus, the green stuff is influenza. Well, we're going to do this for Texas. We're going to do this for Florida. We're going to do this for California. We're going to do this for Michigan and New York and Pennsylvania and Connecticut, right? And we're going to look at who's trending in a good way, who's not. Because a couple states are not. A couple states are a mess. And a couple states are doing great. Right? So how would you know? Because the news isn't reporting this.
No.
Right. All right, let's go one more slide and then we're done. I think the next slide's the last slide. All right, so that's your U.S. total right now. 145,000 according to the Johns Hopkins map. And about 198,600 are dead from influenza. So more from influenza than coronavirus. Right.
This is one of the most shocking things that you've revealed, John, because no one would really think, I mean, it was so far outside of the realm of anything that was on anybody's radar, but it makes sense. So we're just about there. In about 5 minutes, we're going to be going into greater detail on this and other things on Patreon and subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen. And of course, Patreon and Subscribestar/Crowdsource the Truth. Looking forward to seeing everybody there. I don't know why we have social engineers here with us in the chat, but they love to crap it up. And that's one of the reasons why we do these sponsor exclusive shows. It keeps some of the social engineering out. So John, I'll see you there in just